The 101 Dalmatians was written by Dodie Smith. I am reviewing the book, not the movie, so please don't sue me. Argofunk Book Review, Argofunk Book Review. Pongo and his wife Missis are Dalmatians. They own a nice pair of humans named the Dearleys, and Missis recently became pregnant. They are unfortunate enough to meet the demonic Cruella DeVil, an evil, showy woman whose hair is half white and half black. Cruella loves fire and heat, to the point where she drowns all of her food in pepper and wears heavy furs all year long. Her husband is a furrier, which is interesting because he's not in any of the movies. I get the sense the movie people thought she's far too evil to be married. She brags about murdering dozens of her cat's kittens, and she's not shy about the fact she'd love to murder the Dalmatians to get a coat that matches her hair. Mrs. gives birth to 15 puppies, which is too many for one dog to nurse. The humans find a foster mother who they name Perdita. It's a pretty fortunate coincidence they found a stray Dalmatian who was nursing less than a week ago. Cruella pays the family 2 visits once the puppies get their spots. She purposely distracts the nannies while her henchmen steal the puppies. Pongo and Missis want their children back, so they send out a message through Twilight Bark. That is, Pongo barks a message for other dogs, who bark it onto other dogs, who bark it onto other dogs, and pretty soon every dog in England knows the story. A sheepdog named Colonel locates the puppies at Hell Hall in Suffolk. Pongo and Missis run away in order to reach the puppies. They only travel by night, and they get help from various dogs along the way. A young boy throws a rock at Pongo, hurting his leg for a day. Missis is forced to take the lead, which is unfortunate because Missis is a complete idiot. Missis misses out on the meaning of common words, to the point where she can't follow simple instructions like walk straight forward until you reach the haystack. She's helped by an old spaniel who sneaks them food. His owner, Sir Charles, sees the Dalmatians, but he mistakes them for ghost dogs. I couldn't tell if this scene was supposed to be funny or scary. When they reach Hell Hall, they're surprised to find Cruella has almost 100 Dalmatians there. Her plan is to start a Dalmatian farm and get rich selling the furs. Cruella bought all of the dogs legally, which is why no humans are missing them. I hate to say it, but Cruella's plan 100% would have worked if she hadn't gotten greedy and stolen Pongo's pups. The culprit foiled her own plot. The Dearleys have been making a really big fuss about their missing Dalmatians, so Cruella thinks it's too dangerous to continue with the plot right now. She orders her henchmen, Saul and Jasper Baden, to kill the dogs tonight. She's gonna restart the plot in another year or so. Pongo and Missis escape with the puppies while the Badens are distracted by TV. They have brief adventures on the way home. They get a pushcart for the younger puppies. They almost get captured by gypsies. And they disguise themselves as black dogs by rolling around in soot. They go into a church where they humorously think the nativity scene is a television, and kneelers are puppy sleeping pads. Disaster strikes when there's a fire at a village bakery. Now there's nothing for them to eat, and Cruella came by to see the fire. It's actually really creepy. She's like dancing in the flames. Ugh. They try escaping by the road when they're saved by a Christmas miracle. That is, there's a moving van with a dog inside. He lets the Dalmatians hitch a ride, and they're driven back to London. They pass Cruella's house on the way home. Cruella's cat lets them in, and they destroy all of her fur coats. As it turns out, most of the coats aren't paid for yet, so Cruella and her husband are forced to flee the country. She's so upset that the white part of her hair turns green. The Dalmatians return home, where they have a little trouble convincing the Dearleys of who they are. The Dearleys buy Hell Hall, and they all live happily ever after until the sequel. The end. Post-book follow-up. This is a clever and creative book. The highlights are the Twilight Bark and the dogs thinking they own the humans. Cruella DeVil is a pretty unique and interesting villain. The book definitely plays up her devil connection more than the movie. I think the book doesn't get as much credit as it deserves because the movie is so fantastic. it was definitely a bit odd reading the book for the first time as an adult after seeing the movie as a kid at least 10 times. The book and the movie are 90% the same. Most of the changes they made to the movie are improvements. A good portion of this book is dogs traveling by themselves. It's about 4 chapters to get there and 4 chapters to get back. I could see some readers getting bored by those sections, but they held my interest, if for no other reason than the fact that they aren't in the movie. My instinct is to give this book a perfect score, but I have to admit that some of the jokes have not aged well. Mostly the jokes about gender roles and marriage, those are outdated. Some of the British military jokes are less obvious now that we're so far removed from World War II. And the idea of the Baddens being distracted by TV was probably far more creative back in the 1950s. But hey, this book is 64 years old. It's not that big a deal that it has some outdated jokes. The main story and the characters are still solid. It's easy to see why kids like this book. I give the 101 Dalmatians a 9 out of 10.